A spot in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf is on the line. It's the last Saturday of the Saratoga summer meeting, and it's the Flower Bowl for the ladies, gone 1 3/8 miles over the inner turf. I'm joined by TwinSpires analyst James Scully, fresh off a big trip to Saratoga. He's back in Kentucky, but I think he'll cap even better, if not as good as he did there. James, the Flower Bowl. Chad Brown has won this event 6 times, but he doesn't have the favorite this year.
No, he does not. Warlike Goddess will be an odds-on favorite. She's making a title defense after winning this race by 2.25 lengths last year. In fact, she's won 6 of her last 7 starts, the lone exception being a close third in the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf last fall, where I thought she moved too soon on the far turn, Scott. You can make a case she would have proved best if perhaps she had a little bit of different, offered a run a little bit later into the stretch.
Yeah, she has been absolutely awesome over the last couple of years. She's 3 for 3 over this turf course, and she came off a little bit of a layoff last time out to get the job done in the Glens Falls. Now, James, her last 2 efforts, though, in terms of Brisnet speed ratings, nowhere near the previous 3, including that effort that you mentioned in the Breeders' Cup. Does that have you a little bit concerned going into Saturday?
It does, Scott. Warlike Goddess is still a very classy performer, I believe, for Bill Mott. But those last 2 efforts, I thought both those races had slower paces. Obviously, I mean, they're running 6 furlongs, real like 117 and change last time. But I thought the dynamics of the race suited her, whereby it wasn't just like, you had a couple horses mixing it up on the front end, at least by the far turn. So she got the job done, got it done convincingly, but she's not running as fast as she was last year.
Yeah, that's a concern. I mean, we saw Latruska kind of with a similar situation, obviously much different on the dirt and different things like that. But when they start to decline, you never know, especially the females. Now, you mentioned the pace of that last race in the Glens Falls. It's a little bit murky in here as well, isn't it?
It is, but I will say this. I thought last time there were a couple of players in there, Key Biscayne and Petrichor, that aren't back in this spot. And I think, especially drawing post number 3 with Irad Ortiz, and her best race by far coming wire to wire in the Sheepshead Bay, Virginia Joy is your likely pace setter. I would expect Irad to try to get her clear instead of having to run head to head or close with another rival.
I saw you picked her, obviously, before we came on here, and I was kind of curious as to why you thought she would be able to turn the tides after, having things her way to an extent. Clean trip. Now, it wasn't on the lead in the Glens Falls, but now it makes some sense to me. So you have her on the lead and maybe tough for Warlike Goddess and the rest of the field to catch.
Absolutely. And I think, Virginia Joy, she was a Group 3 winner in Germany. She's raced 7 times in the U.S. for Chad Brown. And, her forms, to me, the Sheepshead Bay that she won by 14 lengths wire to wire is by far the visually most impressive performance of her, U.S. campaign so far. It was also a situation coming out of that race where I think you could confidently say she'll never get a ridiculous setup like that, where she's 3-4 lengths clear early and just galloping along as a lone speed. Well, sure enough, it looks like she's going to get that scenario in the Flower Bowl on Saturday. And I think she's got a chance to take advantage of, obviously it's going to come down to holding off Warlike Goddess, but I do think the dynamics of the race benefit Virginia Joy.
Well, I too am looking to a horse that will get to jump on Warlike Goddess. And I too am looking at a Chad Brown runner who, as I mentioned, has won this race 6 times. But what I found interesting is with Virginia Joy, when Irad's been aboard, hasn't been on the lead. Some of that somewhat circumstantial, other probably by his doing. The same could be said for number 1 Capital Structure, who's never been loose on the lead like Virginia Joy was in that aforementioned Sheepshead Bay. But the last couple of starts with Irad aboard, not his brother Jose, he's been kind of strangled back, or she's been kind of strangled back to an extent. But the 2 races prior to that, when Jose Ortiz was aboard, she was more prominent early. And last time out, she was just super keen, really was in the back. So people aren't going to look to her as a horse that I think will be prominent. But with a different rider and a more free trip from the inside, I think Capital Structure could be on the lead, could be sitting second to Virginia Joy. And I just think the price is right. I thought that was a very impressive effort last time out, albeit against much lesser competition, a second level allowance field. But she was strangled back. She was keen, and she still ran on and won convincingly. But I think she's got more speed than the paper will show you when you're looking at the past performances. And I do think the price is right.
And I'll just have one thing. I took a look at, we talked about this before, and I did take a closer look. She ran in the American Oaks in 2020. I don't think she was right last year, only raced twice Capital Structure. So an argument could be made that she needed that race in June when she ran a fourth in allowance at Belmont, came back last time, continued to progress, and maybe she continues to move forward on Saturday.
Yeah, this is the first time she's put back-to-back races together since 2020. So clearly a mare that's had her issues with soundness, but it looks like she's going into this race the right way. A pretty ambitious entry to beat Warlike Goddess, either with Virginia Joy or Capital Structure. Probably going to take a career best effort, but we should get pretty good prices, especially my horse, I think.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure, Scott. It's a real formidable task, but we saw Jackie's Warrior get beat last weekend. Perhaps we could see another upset on Saturday.
Well, Warlike Goddess will look to be the first to win the Flower Bowl in back-to-back years since Stephanie's Kitten did so in 2014 and 2015 for Chad Brown. James Scully and I, though, going to take a swing again with Chad Brown runners. How about you? Get involved at TwinSpires. Best of luck.